Welcome to Divisionalysis, I'm Fog. What is the advantage of higher burst DPS? Let's go. Did you say to yourself something along the lines of, if the window of time is small, it allows me to put out more damage? Or did you say something like, it's a faster time to kill? Here I've got my test build and I've got two weapons. I've compared these two weapons before, but I have a FAMAS with 900 rounds per minute, fully maxed out, and an additional 5% expertise, and I have an ACR with 6.1% less weapon damage, less health damage, and 15% lower base burst DPS. Did you notice a difference? Did you notice a difference? Did you notice a difference? These two weapons, the FAMAS and the ACR, are almost as far apart on the burst DPS chart as you can possibly get. And ask yourself, did you really notice the difference until I'd put them side by side? Because I can tell you the enemy didn't notice, because halfway through to being killed they were staggered and they could do nothing about their impending death. At the veteran level, you're talking less than 0.2 of a second. And at the absolute maximum, elite level, a heroic, you are talking about 0.25 of a second. Do you really notice that? And that is 15% raw difference in their burst DPS, plus an additional 6.1 additive weapon damage as well. And if you're inclined to say, well, that's because you're using your test build and it doesn't have high enough damage, if you increase the damage, the difference becomes less, not more. Now we're talking just over 0.1 seconds when I double the damage. These two weapons are extremely far apart as far as their burst DPS is concerned. Very, very close when it comes to their time to kill. What about if we were to compare the FAMAS with the M4? So here is the FAMAS versus the M4. Now clearly nobody is going to notice the difference between those two weapons as far as time to kill. It is literally one bullet cycle apart for both the veteran and the elite, and it is 0 bullet cycles apart for the normal, the red bar. So what is it that makes people believe that the FAMAS is better than the M4 at burst firing? There is a reason, but it has virtually nothing to do with DPS. Here is a scale representation of the time to kill for the FAMAS and the M4 of a red bar, a veteran, and an elite. This is the difference that applies. There is no difference at the normal level. It's 1 bullet cycle by the time you get to the veteran, and it is yet to reach 2 bullet cycles by the time you get to an elite. Literally 1 bullet cycle between them. The real reason is this difference. The FAMAS has a quicker reload time. And in the case of the FAMAS versus the M4, as far as their difference when it comes to burst, it is 77% more attributable to the reload time than it is to the burst DPS. So what most likely is the case is confirmation bias. We think that it's because of one thing, so we attribute it to that, and then we see it when it isn't really there. Here's the next example. How much damage makes a difference? I'm going to do the same test. This time I'm going to use glass cannon, a full 25% amplified damage. When it comes time for the comparison, you have to guess which one is glass cannon and which one is not. The point isn't which one was which. The point is that it was virtually impossible to tell the difference. And that an additional 25% burst DPS made 5/5 of fuck all difference. So what is the point of damage? Okay, we're back watching the same footage from before, the FAMAS versus the ACR, but this time at the end I'm going to add on the named elite. Did you notice the difference? So we've established that there is very little to notice in time to kill by adding more damage. But you sure as shit notice when you don't have enough of it. The question isn't, does damage kill the enemy faster? Or the question is, does this damage kill the enemy? That's it. Adding damage post that point offers you very little in return. And this is what I'm calling the burst bubble. What's far more important than your burst DPS is whether or not the enemy that you're trying to kill sits within your burst bubble. As we saw with the FAMAS versus the ACR, the additional 15+% burst DPS meant fuck all, because the enemy we were trying to kill was not within the FAMAS's burst bubble. So the real reason for damage has nothing to do with burst DPS, or what you've been told is the reason for damage. It is something completely different. So this elite sits within my burst bubble. But did you notice anything? I've only got 30 rounds in my magazine. So why do we run with an extended magazine? Hopefully I don't need to tell you or put these side by side for you to know that this is exactly the same time to kill. So what's the point of the extended magazine? The point is that real gameplay does not let you get 100% accuracy on headshots at 5 meters. The extended magazine is there for that margin of error, because without it, any margin of error means that this elite now drops out of my burst bubble. And because of that, my time to kill has now drastically increased. But as I've shown before, damage is very much affected in-game. And the size of your bubble is considerably different from what you see in the firing range or what you get from a calculation that does not incorporate all of these variables. What you're experiencing from more damage is actually making up for the margin of error from the firing range or your calculation. You are making up for this difference here. It's not about killing the named enemy, it's actually making up for the margin of error for killing an elite. If we just include one of those variables, accuracy, the average player will achieve around 50% accuracy across a mission if they're using an assault rifle. That's a big margin of error. And what that means is that your burst bubble is considerably smaller. When you account for 50% accuracy, the bubble is smaller. It wasn't about not being able to kill the named enemy. What it's about is not being able to kill the elite. and we can easily replicate 50% accuracy in the firing range by asking both weapons to kill 2 elites instead of 1. More damage isn't about damage per second. More damage is simply there so you can say yes to can I kill it more often. Is this oversimplified? Absolutely, but we've got to start somewhere. Is damage per second important? Well, I showed you how 2 weapon systems as far apart on the burst DPS chart can be, how that made next to no difference whatsoever. I showed you how the same weapon but with 25% more amplified damage, it made virtually no difference whatsoever. But is damage important? Absolutely. The amount of damage that you put out tells you whether or not you can eliminate a target. And once you have accounted for your margin of error, more damage allows a larger margin of error, but once you have accounted for that margin of error between the range and real in-game play, if you can say, yes, I can kill an elite, then adding more damage post that point is a waste of time. You would be much better off putting that into something else. And I think that most people find this. Most people realize this. That's why they don't use a glass cannon vigilance build running through heroic level, because they've worked out that the damage that they have is enough. And if I can say that I can kill an elite within my margin of error, then I can definitely kill a veteran, I can definitely kill a normal, I can definitely kill a veteran and a normal inside that bubble. I can definitely kill 3 normals inside that bubble. And at heroic level, that's all you need. Now, where our fascination with burst DPS has led us astray is that it makes very little difference at all. Damage does, but the focus on burst DPS has led us to focus inside the burst bubble, when in reality, you can get much more return by focusing outside the bubble. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about a forgotten stat, and I'm going to talk about damage and that margin of error and what some of those asterisks after that damage number are. If you like, then like. If you want to see more, subscribe, but I will see you in the next one. Fog out.